Hi, everyone. Welcome back to This Week at Notarize. And so my next guest tells me it's spring break, at least for politicians. And so March is traditionally a time where there's a lull in the legislative calendar across the country, which means it's the perfect time to get a state of play update from our Executive Vice President for Public Affairs, Nicole Booth. Hello, Nicole.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. And I apparently totally lied about the spring break thing this year. I should all know that all things pandemic mean we don't have the traditional process, but here we are. I can still give you a great update.
Now, remote online notarization has had a really great couple of years. So 2018, we passed a bunch of bills. 2019, I think we set the record for the number of bills that we passed. And then 2020, even amidst the pandemic, saw a lot of bills passed in favor of remote online notarization. And these are the bills that actually allow the notaries in a given state to tap into that online notarization marketplace, which is why we place so much emphasis on them. So how are things going so far in 2021?
So, and a lot of things in the government affairs space, if a bill is already introduced or session is already moving, you're already late to the game. It's a multi-layered process. The first starts with relationship building, and then you're moving into identifying opportunities for movement. In this case, we're talking about remote online notarization and having access for notaries. And then the third is what I like to say, the reaction or the execution of the ideas and thoughts that you came up with in that second tier. And so this year, it's been exciting. So as you probably know, Andrew, I hear you talk about a lot. We've had 30 states that have passed permanent remote online notarization. Now, obviously, in 2020, the awareness about access to digital services like remote online notarization just skyrocketed. And so this year we do have, I would say a dozen to 15 states that have introduced either permanent remote online notarization or amend the current statutes like we've seen in Virginia as well. And so there's a lot of activity in this space. And so I brought up how the multi-layer process works because in a lot of ways, Notarize had a wonderful relationship that I got to inherit from a lot of the work that Pat and Renee and other predecessors had done before I even started. So relationships with secretaries of state is really important. Relationships with key members of legislature across the states, very important. And so what I've been trying to do is make sure that we're maintaining those relationships so that we can move on across the finish line in those remaining states, but then build relationships either at the state or now the national or the federal level to make sure that we're introducing Notarize in a new way coming into 2021 as we're scaling and growing in real time and states are reacting to all these digital services. It's exciting stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Would you be able to give us an update on the Federal SECURE Notarization Act and how that's going?
Secure Notarization Act, last year we were looking at it as something temporary through the pandemic. But what we've seen is we need a long-term solution for remote online notarization. During 2020, states did what they could and they kept businesses running. It was a really hard time and emergency orders needed to be done. And so what we found was states introduced things like remote ink notarization, which does not have the same multi-factor authentication and technology in place, those very, very, very important fraud prevention mechanisms that we need, which we have in a long-term viable solution like a remote online notarization. And so with all this in mind, we're going back to the federal level to set a floor of remote online notarization to ensure we have that multi-layered process to protect the consumer, the notary, and the integrity of the Notarial Act for the long term. And so with all of that, right now we're building co-sponsors. We're getting states engaged again to be supportive with members at the federal level so that we can have buy-in from those states that they wanted, that they think it's worth having. And so we should be introducing a bill here soon. But again, we're getting through this 100 days, learning who the relationships are, building the coalition of state folks to lobby at the federal level, and then look at a permanent bill going forward. So lots of activity. Again, before the bill's even introduced, a lot of activity is happening. So Thanks for asking. Long-winded, but it's exciting. It's exciting stuff there too, because you have an opportunity to start fresh.
For sure. And it's something that we're asked about so often, right? Is how do we get some national standards on the books? And so people are paying pretty close attention to that.
So if you want to support the Secure Notarization Act and you're a state association watching right now, please reach out to me and Andrew and we will get you set up.
Yes, we will.
That's right.
All right, Nicole. So for Women's History Month, we've been asking everyone who comes on about a woman or group of women who have inspired them or made an impact in their career. Who is that for you?
For me, it was my grandmother. She just passed away last fall, but she was 91 years old. She lived a very long life. And when she was 63, my grandfather passed away. And up until that point, like she had been a homemaker, she had never balanced a checkbook. She didn't even know how to drive. So he passed away. She just started from scratch. And I think that that's something that I've taken with me my whole life is like, you hear me talking about a lot, like a reboot, a restart. You can always reinvent and get to your next level. And I learned that from watching my grandmother when my grandfather passed away. She learned how to drive a car. She learned how to balance a checkbook. She took care of herself. She lived at home alone. Like she had brunch with ladies at church. It's just, I look at that every day and I look at myself and I'm like, okay, no matter how low I feel or whatever the challenge or the obstacle is like, okay, well, I'll just wake up, refresh and learn how to drive, So she was one of the biggest, there's a whole community, but my grandmother, she made a huge impact on my life.
Thank you so much for taking the time. I know that your schedule is quite hectic these days, but appreciate you coming on and spending some time with us this week in Notarize.
No, I appreciate it. If you have questions, you want to be engaged, you want to get involved, whether you want to get involved in diversity, equity, and inclusion and bridging the digital divide. If you want to get involved in changing remote online notarization in states or looking at broad, big policy issues like digital identity and how to move forward as an organization, like please reach out to me. I'd love to have these conversations. It's about the future of Notarize. And I think there's a lot of opportunity and growth that we have for 2021 and 2022, like just going forward.
Couldn't agree more. We're super excited. Thanks so much, Nicole.
Thank you.